Welcome back to another tactical fly fisher video. The local rivers here are still pretty blown out, and it's the perfect time to keep doing a little more lake fishing. So today we've come to a lake that it's got a pretty good population of cutthroats, and it just iced off recently. So we're gonna take a little walk up the trail, go see what we can find, and hopefully there'll be a few nice cutties along the way. Let's go. After a nice long walk, we've made it to the lake, and looking around the edges here, there's a bunch of down timber that's fallen in, and as soon as we got here, I looked right here among this pile of trees, and we saw a nice big cutthroat cruising through. So hopefully there'll be some more just like that. I didn't have a fly on yet, at least not the one I wanted, so I couldn't toss a fly at it to see if it would eat, but we'll get rigged up and hopefully play with some fish. All right, so we've seen a few fish cruising by in this spot. Oh, and there's one that just rose. Let me get out to him real quick. There is no backcasting room here, so I'm kind of limited to roll casts and single hand spay casts. But there's the odd sort of boiling rise like that that we've seen, kind of 20 to 30 feet out from the bank. And then there's been a few, I think 3 or 4 fish that have cruised past while I was rigging here in the shallows. And we got good enough looks at them to see that they were all individual fish. It wasn't the same fish. But, oh, there we go. Look, come on. Don't. Yeah, I've got one taking a peek at my fly right now. So what I've done, I've rigged up a real simple leader. I have a midge tip line on. I got about 6 feet to my top dropper, which I have a cream mop on to begin with. Usually gets a lot of attention in lakes. Oop, here's 2 fish cruising by right now. Not interested. So then I'll get back to that in a second. Then I have another 6 feet or so of tippet, and it's all just 4X from the fly line. And then I have a small nymph, what's called a cruncher in the UK scene, which is essentially just a soft tackle pheasant tail that has a little bit of straggle for the thorax. But we'll see if we can get some of these fish that are cruising by to actually commit. If not, obviously I'm going to have to change up flies, maybe tactics. I'm not sure whether sort of a shock and awe reaction bite, quick retrieve situation would be best, or just statically hanging something in their face. But if I can't get fish slow crawling like this, we'll have to change tactics here. So far, I've made 3 casts and had 3 follows on that mop, but they just haven't committed. So we'll see if that changes. So I took off the mop and the little nymph. I was getting follows but no committed takes. Switched to some tungsten beaded buggers. I've got a smallish humongous. I know that's an oxymoron. But a small silver humongous with a 2.3 millimeter bead on the top dropper, and then I have an olive leech with a 2.8 millimeter orange bead on the point. And we'll just work some strip pause retrieves here and see if I can get any change in take. There's part of the problem we have right now is the lake, it did just recently ice off, but being that they're cutthroats, I think we've almost come a few days too late, and a lot of them are already into thinking about spawning mode, kind of cruising by, acting weird. Here's a single right here. Let's see if he wants it. And so a lot of them may already be sort of out of post ice off feeding mode and into looking for mates. So I'm trying to avoid any fish that I see cruising by in pairs and things like that. Just kind of let them do their thing. But if I can find a single fish that's cruising by that looks to actually be cruising in a feeding mode instead of a hunting mate mode, then those are the ones I'm looking for. Oh, there we go. So I'd seen a fish rising over there and hurried and ran down the bank about 20 feet and flipped a little single hand spay cast out there. And the fish took the humongous. Interestingly, that's a really pretty cutthroat. Really pretty cutthroat. So to begin with, I had that mop and a soft tackle pheasant tail on, but I was not getting committed takes anyway. I'd get a few follows. So I switched up, went to humongous on the top dropper with a lighter bead at 2.3, and then this is just an olive leech with an orange 2.8 millimeter bead. Hoping to get some jigging action as I made some retrieves. I've already missed one fish on that and just landed that fish on the humongous, so thankfully they're both working to begin with, and hopefully as we work our way around the lake, we'll be able to find some more takers. Well, so we're walking along the shore here, and here's a couple of pods of spawning fish. You can see they're actually trying to dig redds here in the shallows and the gravel. And even though they're not likely to be successful, and this lake is supported by stocking and not really by natural reproduction, we don't really need to be fishing for spawners. So we're going to leave them alone, have fun looking at them for a second, and hopefully go find some fish that are still interested in eating and not being romantic. Well, that was a nice subtle take at the end of the retrieve, right as I was starting to hang. Looks like it took that humongous again. There's another nice fish. Pretty cutthroat sea lighter fish. So I hadn't been doing as well as I expected. So Kramer and I took a little lunch break, and I was looking around, and there's been plenty of tiny little midges or chironomids flying around us this morning. And I brought this specific rod in here to be able to do some single-hand spay casting with an indicator rig. So this is an 11-foot 7/8 weight Solderini rod, and then I switched to this bung or indicator rig where I have a polywing sort of booby as a dry flyer indicator that's suspending the rig, and then at about I'd say 3.5, 4 feet, I have a little ice cream cone chironomid, and then another 3.5 feet below that, I have a little chromie chironomid, both pupa patterns to imitate the pupa that I'm seeing the shucks of all around here. The chironomids that I'm seeing, they're quite small. They're 20s or so, maybe even 18s to 22s basically, and these are about a size 16, so they're not exactly imitative, but so far they've done the job. I just landed that fish, and the cast before that I had also hooked a fish and played it about halfway in before it got off. So we'll get back out there, and maybe I'll show you a little bit about the spay casting that I'm doing, and hopefully a few more will take the midges. So a lot of times on high altitude lakes like this, you've got situations where you have no backcasting room. And so you need to either do roll casts or sort of modified spay casts. And so a long time ago, as I was messing around on a high lake, I started experimenting with different spay casts, not really knowing that's what I was doing. And what I ended up coming up with was this cast sort of right here, where I get the head of the line out that I want to shoot, and I've got an actual orange section of the line here that shows me where the head stops. So it's kind of like a Skagit head where you have a color change there to let you know. But I get that up toward the tip of the head. This is much longer than a Skagit head. This is actually a 70-foot head on this Solderini line. And I pile up that slack, and then just sort of shoot a D-loop and launch it. You can do it even with from the bank. You usually can't do it quite as long because you don't have as much D-loop room, but you can find ways to still get it to work. Just pile up your slack right there, do a little dump, and then shoot it. And as I was looking around when I actually got into steelhead fishing and trying to learn about spay casting, I realized that I was pretty much doing a parry poke as I got looking at different videos. So if you want to learn how to do some spay casting yourself for high lakes, you can do modified roll casts, especially with like a single haul on the front, or I do those a lot for shorter ranges or when I have absolutely no D-loop room. But if you look up a parry poke, that's a really good one to be able to know for high lakes. And then you can also modify single spays and double spays and things like that to be able to get what you need as well. But it's a really useful technique of casting when you don't have that backcasting room, which is so common on high lakes where you're stuck to the bank and you don't have a boat, but you have trees behind you like we do here. Spay casting will really help you get out and get a little more distance from the bank and hopefully show it to some fish that haven't seen your flies so far. And once again with this rig, I'm just letting that indicator sit out there, watching for it to go down. If it forms a belly in the line like that, and it starts to pull on those chironomid pupae that are hanging below it, so I go ahead and make a little bit of an upwind mend to let it sit still after that again. And you can fish that whole length of the cast back in. It takes a long time for an entire cast to be completed, but they've been pretty receptive to the chironomids below the indicator so far, more so than they were to the stripped and retrieved buggers, which oftentimes cutthroats are pretty receptive to that, so I was a little surprised. But if they want to eat my midges, I'll let them eat my midges. Oh, hello. Missed that one. Admittedly, fishing a couple of chironomids under an indicator like this, or an indicator dry as the case is here, it's not the most electrifyingly exciting way to fish, but when the fish are being a little snotty and wanting small chironomids especially that aren't moved very fast or at all, then it can be a very effective way to fish. So the fish have definitely responded pretty well to it so far. I've had an eat on almost every single cast. Missed a couple of them, lost another, but pretty simple and easy way to fish. I think the number one mistake I see with most people when they're fishing indicator rigs on lakes is they don't worry or even think about the mending at all. So you see them get these big bellies in their line that are towing their flies along, and you can see I'm starting to get a little bit of a belly in my line. Hello, fish. And so I'm gonna look at that, come downwind and roll the line so that I mend it back upwind, or most people thinking of rivers, it'd be upstream for the mend at that point. That'll give my flies some reprieve for a bit before the line catches up and starts towing on them again. But you want to let them sit as close to still as possible most of the time, with maybe the occasional twitch. And hopefully a fish just comes along and gives them a chomp when you do that. Boy, that one was just barely beyond the shelf before my flies would have ticked bottom. Took that point fly again. Whoop. A little smaller fish, but really pretty. Nice. There we go. Oh, that's a little better fish. Took that same chromie again, so they're all down a little bit deeper. That fly is about 7 feet from the indicator dry fly. There we go. Not bad at all. Well, the switch to the midges under the dry, definitely been the way to go so far. Before that, I only caught, I think, 2 or 3 fish on buggers on the midge tip, which kind of surprised me. Normally that's a pretty reliable rig in a high lake like this, but that's why I had multiple methods ready to go and another rod that I could put that indicator on, and just sitting off this shelf here. That's quite a few fish and a few casts. So hopefully it'll keep going. Here's Kramer finally got a chance to stop filming and start fishing. So here's a nice cutthroat for him. All right, get it going. Kramer, what fly did it take?
Chromie.
Yeah, he's got pretty much the same indicator rig on that I've just been fishing. The chromie seems to be the treat of the day. Oh, he went right over that log. I couldn't see that log was even there with the glare. Oh boy, did I get lucky. There's another nice fish. I just switched rigs. Kramer had noticed that when he was fishing the indicator rig out here and getting into where the fish had been taken previously just beyond the shelf that's here, he started getting some takes once he was twitching his flies and stripping them instead of just letting them sit. So I also, on the previous fish to that, had the same thing happen. So I just grabbed my other rig that I had, just my normal 6-weight lake rod that has the midge tip on it still, and I re-rigged it a little bit, put 3 nymphs on it that were spaced fairly close together, about 3 feet apart, and just did short strip retrieves on the way in. And that last one took just on one of those short strips, just kind of pulled the midge tip right out. So I don't know how much longer we're going to get to stay here. It's starting to rain, and the forecast was for some pretty heavy rain this afternoon. And I do have my son's baseball game that I got to get back for, but hopefully we can get another fish or 2 before we got to jet out of here. So it turns out the fish are more than willing to eat the nymphs moving, because the indicator fishing in this area had kind of slowed down. And like I said earlier, Kramer had made some casts where as the indicator got close to him, he twitched it a few times and then missed some fish. And then I did the same thing on a couple of casts and had a couple of grabs that way too. So that's when I switched rigs, went to a 3 nymph rig, and now I've had a bunch of grabs just in the last 5-6 casts here, pretty much just about every cast. So just like in any lake scenario, you've got all the pieces of the puzzle to put together. First you got to find where the fish are at, and it took a little bit of walking and then finding a specific shelf here where the fish were congregated kind of beyond that shelf. And then we had, I originally was fishing some bugger style patterns in here, leech and buggers, and got a couple, but they weren't as receptive as I was expecting them to be. So then the indicator rig with the nymphs worked pretty well, and now we've just got 3 tungsten nymphs on that midge tip, and we're doing fairly short strip retrieves on the way back. And there's another one. That one ate on the hang. Looks like it's back to the point fly. I've now gotten a fish on all 3 of my nymphs, so that's a good sign. I've got a cruncher on the top dropper, a pheasant tail chironomid in the middle that actually has an orange bead on it, and then the point fly is a chromie. Come here. Oh, well, that's okay. Ooh, maybe I really did wear out my welcome. Nope. That's a good fish, too. It's one of those light colored ones. Oh, yeah. When in doubt, give Kramer your rod and watch him catch fish. Oh, yeah, you don't have a net, do you?
I have a 2 fish on.
You have a double?
Yep.
You have a double, and your net is on the bank. There's one. Hand line the second in.
Came off.
Okay, well, it's probably better that way. Ooh, that's nice. Whoop. Well, okay. See you later, fish. There you go. Thanks everybody for watching this tactical fly fisher video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and maybe it inspired you to get out and do a little still water fishing of your own. Come on over to tacticalflyfisher.com. We're happy to help you with all your fly fishing and fly tying needs, and maybe we'll see you on the water. I think we're nice and cold and rained on, caught enough fish. We're gonna call it a day, but we'll catch you in the next one. We were just walking through the pine trees here, a long ways from the water, and I kicked up a hen mallard who flew out in front of me, and lo and behold, of course she was back here sitting on a nest. And I can't really show you with all the branches blocking, but I quickly counted the eggs. She's got 11 of them in there. It's gonna be a busy girl later this summer, but we'll hurry and leave, and hopefully she can get back.